The Australian Security Academy acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognises the continuing connection to lands, waters and communities. We pay our respect to the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander cultures and to elders past and present. Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people should be aware that this series of live streams contains images or names of people who have passed away. Hi everyone, Mike Evans and Casey Evans. We've been pressing all the wrong buttons. Welcome to Spy Curious, episode 316, the Friday afternoon news service. G'day Courtney, hi Amber, hi Emily, thanks for saying hello. G'day Neenad, great to see you mate. Thanks for checking in everybody. It's really great to see people watch our program. So with the weekly Friday afternoon news service and event service and information service for job vacancies, that sort of. Hi, Michelle, how are you? Great to see you. Hope things are well in beautiful Byron Bay. And we're here for private investigators, government investigators and corporate investigators throughout Australia. You may have just noticed that we started out today with an acknowledgement of country. We are registered training organisation 30547, and under the 2025 standards for RTOs, we must commence our events with an acknowledgement of country, which I think is absolutely wonderful. I am from a small mining town in Tasmania, which has been named frequently as one of the towns with the largest population of Aboriginal people in Australia. And I grew up in that town. My Sunday school teacher was Aboriginal, my footy coach was, many of the people I went to primary and high school and TAFE were Aboriginal. It's a large community in the town where I actually grew up. And I was fortunate enough to make connections over the years that have lasted now beyond 60 years, which has given me insights into that one particular community. I have no idea about communities in the desert in Western Australia or on the Northern Territory, but the one I grew up in, I'm quite familiar with. I have a duty as the CEO to ensure that our RTO is inclusive of First Nations people and that we're supportive of their learning. And I will follow through that duty, not just because it's in the standards and it's required, it's something that we are fully committed to. As a registered training organisation that teaches in many different locations around the country, we go out and we teach sometimes in Aboriginal land, on Aboriginal land. And on those occasions, I can specifically name them and specifically acknowledge them. And as part of my duty to acknowledge features of Aboriginal land is under the new standards as well. So I thought I'd share one that's quite interesting with you. A few years back, we did some drone training down in Tasmania. And that training involved, you're going to see acknowledgement of the country throughout RTOs and events all around Australia moving forward. It's great. Yep. So involved going to this place, which is in Macquarie Harbour in Tasmania. Back in the mid-1970s, there was a man who visited this spot. It was very similar to this same spot. And he went there and he was taking photos. And one of the photos he took looked like this, and he took the photos in to get developed. He took several of this same spot for whatever reason. He was just interested in it. Back in those days, you sent your photos away for 7 days at the chemist and they came back later. He opened up his package of photos, and when he opened it up, this is what he saw. And he thought that the chemist had superimposed that symbol over the photo. Now, with a large community, and it got in the newspapers, this sort of thing, because people were wondering what was going on, and they made inquiries with the local community, and they said, if you see that, get out of there straight away. That's all they said. Get out of there straight away. So that's okay. 3 years ago, we went there to do some drone training as the Australian Security Academy. As a responsible owner of the Australian Security Academy, I told all our staff who were doing the drone training to be careful. You could get lost here. There's quicksand, there's snakes, there's leeches, there's all sorts of fun stuff. But I was very confident. One person out of the group didn't listen to me, and she went and got herself lost. Let's have a look. Now, I think you can guess who that person is. But I knew she was safe. I've been there on 50 occasions for various activities. And I knew we were going to that exact spot. Why did I know she was safe? I knew she was safe because I got permission from an elder in the community to go there, which provided safety for us and met with the spiritual and cultural feelings of that location. So I knew someone wasn't going to listen to me, but it's not as bad as the time Alex got lost. We'll come back to that one in Tasmania, a different location, in the snow and in the ice one day. Why did you get lost, Casey?
Well, it was pretty and I was cold, and so I went for a walk.
And it all looks the same. Did you see any quicksand?
No, but that makes it look like it's flat. Like that hill was like that, and I'm like struggling up there. And I have so many layers on.
That was a very, very long walk home. I don't know how you managed to find your way back. Someone was looking after you. So people, each week we bring you what's happening around Australia, and some of the things that you'll find this week are our job vacancies. And those job vacancies, hang on, I've got a comment here. What's going on? Yeah, there's always one. Yep. Yep. Okay, people. So, yep. So one of the things we have are job vacancies each week. So I'm just going to run through, there's quite a few this week. If you're interested in a role as a licensed private investigator, corporate investigator, government investigator in Australia, go to this Facebook webpage and you'll see where I put the job vacancies up. Now, I only put up 30% of them because I'm too busy. I just haven't got time to do it. Excuse me. But it gives you an idea, and you can research over 5 years of job vacancies in there now, what's happening. So Brookside, after a factual investigator in Brisbane. So all the details about what they're looking for there. Brookside do general insurance investigations, home burglaries, home arsons, motor vehicle accidents, stolen motor vehicles, accidents in the home by tradesmen and visitors, that sort of thing. Multiple general insurance investigators are required in Victoria and Melbourne. This is circumstance or factual investigators taking statements of people and claimants and witnesses. That's a really great opportunity with Quantum Corp down in Melbourne. Brian F. Davis in New South Wales. After factual investigators for workers' compensation, they're offering $55 an hour on a subcontract rate in New South Wales. Up to $55 an hour, sorry. And TAC factual investigators are required by the LKA group down in Melbourne, in Victoria, and all around Victoria. Other than that, Quantum Corp are after TAC investigators in Victoria as well. What is TAC? TAC is the Transport Accident Commission. So they're after people who are going to go out and interview people who've had motor vehicle accidents and witnesses to it, people that have been injured in accidents. That's what you're going to be doing in relation to that. Now, the really important thing about the TAC investigations is in Investigations Uni, people, that's the program that precedes this one for our students each week, we have an hours-long presentation that you can go and watch. That is done by the former head of the Transport Accident Commission Investigation Internal Department of the Transport Accident Commission. And he tells you about the important legislation, and he tells you about the important considerations, and it's all free. And when you go and apply to Quantum Corp, or you apply to whoever else, LKA or Quantum Corp or M&A Investigations in Victoria, you can watch that presentation, go to your interview the next day, and you are going to sound like the must-have investigator. Even though you have no experience, you're going to shock them with your knowledge of TAC investigations. And it's all available free right here, just like Casey's OSINT presentations. If you're an Australian Security Academy student or graduate, you can have access to this. It costs you nothing. It's live every Friday, and you can get continuous professional development points in a lot of that program too. So it's a very valuable resource to support the alumni, graduates, and current students of the Australian Security Academy. Where am I? I've got to get to my next one. I've had this one here for a week and I haven't put it up yet. It's a really important one. Australian Security Academy graduate student, Andrew Davis. He is looking for investigators throughout the country. He's had a lot of success with the establishment of his business some 6 years ago, and they do workers' compensation investigations. So if you go to our Facebook page and look for this, and you'll see Andrew's business featuring frequently in there, advertising for investigators in workers' compensation, taking statements, doing statutory and common law claims. It's a really great opportunity to work for an absolutely fantastic team down there. ProCare are looking for transport accident investigators down in Victoria as well. So there is just a huge demand for Transport Accident Commission investigators down in Victoria. Now, you are going to be interviewing people who've had a traumatic injury or saw something traumatic. You must be prepared for that. And with those kind of investigations, you're going to be interviewing people mostly at home. So you may be doing the investigations, taking statements at night time, or when they're available at home. It may be early in the morning, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, before they have to go to work at 11 or something like that. So with workers' compensation, you interview people mostly at work. That's where the witnesses are. The claimant won't be at work. You'll interview them at home if it's statutory, and that's where you've got to do it. But when it comes to motor vehicle accident CTP, which is a compulsory third-party liability, which is the Transport Accident Commission of Victoria, and you can see all about it in Investigations Uni, you'll do your interviews at home. Now, some of them might be self-employed, and they will see you at their workplace, 4 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, but there's nothing wrong with that. There are people that have psychological injuries from what they saw at accident scenes. So you'll be interviewing them too, because as a result of the accident, they are mentally scarred because of a psychological injury that they just can't get out of their head from what they saw at it. So there's a whole range of different things you'll be doing. There'll be truck accidents, there'll be tractor accidents, there'll be people in registered vehicles in Western Australia, but they're Victorian registered vehicles that have an accident in Western Australia. And one of the things they talk about in that Transport Accident Commission presentation at Investigations Uni is a $6.5 million payout to one Italian citizen who had an accident driving in Western Australia in a Victorian registered vehicle when he rolled it, and when he was in it and rolled and he was injured in it. And he happened to be a lawyer and a male model, and very successful and earned a very high income. So he naturally got a very high payout as a result of the injuries he sustained. And he sustained very severe injuries, including brain damage as well in relation to that accident. So lots of variety, lots of jobs there. Get on that Facebook page and have a look at them, and you'll certainly see what your opportunities may be in that area. Casey, what do you got for us today?
I have, we've just got a question here from Courtney. Do you have to be trained to talk to minors?
Okay, so what happens, this is really good, absolutely brilliant question, Courtney. This is what happens. You'll receive your instructions from the Transport Accident Commission lawyers or claims managers. They will say to you, we want you to interview this witness, that witness, and this witness. The one in the middle, that witness, happens to be an 11-year-old child. And you've got to interview them. So you will follow the Transport Accident Commission's procedures and processes and policies, which are in your case management system that you have access to, that says when you interview someone under 17, for example, they must have a parent or guardian present. And it's the same for people with a mental disability. You'll be forever surprised and amazed about how many people are driving on the road who have a mental disability. And they can drive, there's nothing wrong with that. Right, but if they're going to be interviewed like a minor, they must have a parent or guardian present to assist them with what it is. It's not that they've done anything wrong, it's because they're entitled to that protection of advice from someone else in relation to what they're giving a statement about. So that person is allowed to, be there to support, help, not answer the questions, but to say to the person, well, are you absolutely sure? Do you want to answer that question? Whatever. So minors, you will have a parent, guardian. It may be an uncle, aunt, if the parents died in the accident. It may be someone from the government, depending on what the situation is. But really good question. And I had one myself where a plumber was standing on a roof and he touched a piece of spouting on electrical wires above his head, and he was electrocuted. Sparks came out of the hard-toed boots he was wearing. He was thrown off to the roof, dramatically onto the ground, and there were 4 kids there watching, who were the only witnesses. They were sitting on their bikes watching these plumbers repair the roof. And those kids were the only witnesses to that accident. So I went to their mothers and I asked them if they'd let me give me a statement. Every single one of them said no, they're too traumatised by it. They're not giving you a statement. They're not going to go and repeat that again. So I reported that to, it wasn't Transport Accident Commission, this was another area. I reported back to the people that were instructing me, and they said, fine, don't do it. Right? So we're not going to put a kid through that. So circumstances will relate to every one of them, but you may get, and you'll come across this particularly with probably workers' compensation more than anything else. There'll be a student from high school on a traineeship working at a mechanic shop, and that student will be 6'7", will be 120 kilos, and they're only 15. And you'll look at them, you don't know they're a student, and they will, they'll have half a beard and they'll look like a full-on adult. And you won't know, but you must ask and you must check. So the great question, I'm really pleased you asked that. It's important to follow the process, policy and procedure and have that support person present with minors, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's right. It will bring back trauma, but you're given the questions to ask. And there are questions that you will not have to ask because they won't relate to that particular area. So in your case management system, if you're assigned to go and do a collision between two vehicles and there's an argument over who had the red light, and this is part of your Transport Accident Commission instructions, you'll be given an idiot sheet of questions to ask the driver, an idiot sheet of questions to ask the passenger, an idiot sheet of questions to ask the pedestrian, and an idiot sheet of questions to ask any witnesses that were standing at the lights. Now, from that idiot sheet, you ask the questions, and every answer you get, you are now a trained investigator who's done statement taking, records of interview, and Pat Flynn has marked you as competent. You understand that from every answer you get, there's going to be 3 more questions. That's why you do the training. That's why you're competent in it. And that's why you can do it. Never think that you can't do it or you won't be supported. And I know you're not saying that, but there is a heck of a lot of onboarding support that's professional in 2025 when you join ProCare or you join Allied Universal or any of the other ones, Quantum Corp, LKA, Andrew Davis, all the ones, Brian, what's his name? Sorry, Brian. When you join those today, you get onboarding and support, inductions into how to use the case management system, where to go and get things. And if there's any specific areas like workers' compensation, policies for investigators, that sort of thing, it's all in your case management system. So you're never going to be reinventing the wheel or flying blind. Sorry, back to Casey now.
There's if you Google trauma-informed interview techniques, that's becoming more and more popular. It's really important to familiarize yourself with that as well. And in your course material under, I think it's conduct interviews and take statements, it gives you the guidelines about what to do if you do have to interview a minor or someone with a disability, they need a support person and things like that. I do interviews with children for a company whose policy and procedures that not only do I have to have a parent with the child, but also an extra support person, because often the parents aren't emotionally, like they're sad or traumatized as well. Good. Yeah. Trauma-informed interview techniques. It's fantastic. There's lots of documents out there on it, which are really, really good. And like most, as Mike was saying, most places that do that, any kind of factual investigations, they will have policies and procedures that are informed by those interview techniques. So yeah, cool. That's awesome, Amber. So definitely, yeah, it's as in just like the rest of the world getting more emotionally mature, so are investigators. We can't just go in there and bark at a child or anyone that's been traumatized and expect to get good answers. So it's, yeah, we are maturing as the world is. Investigators are definitely keeping up with all of this stuff, and it's changing really quickly now. But yeah, but we're staying ahead, so it's good. And it's good to hear that it was big last week as well, Amber. Cool. So I've just got a quick one this week, which was, it's kind of what I talked about in investigations uni. It's just one of the more important things that I think a lot of investigators overlook. So whenever you're starting out in open source intelligence, I always tell people do a capture the flag event, because you will get to know if you like open source intelligence investigations or not. If you like OSINT, you will love these capture the flag events. They're generally only like $20 to enter. And I am big in Trace Labs. They do missing persons capture the flag events. So these are real missing people where they are crowdsourcing people from around the world to use their skills to help find information to put together in a report to send to the police. So I was talking about one of the cases that I was working on. A boy went missing in October last year. And in the photo that was taken of him the day he disappeared, he was doing this. And on his wrist was a Whoop, which is essentially like a Fitbit. It tracks like your heart rate, your exercise, and there's an app attached to it and things like that. And because of one of the team members in the team, they knew that it was a Whoop, and they had a Whoop account, and they searched the username that they had found that was attached to him. It was a very unique username, and it had his date of birth at the end. He looked at the Whoop database and saw that his information was there attached to that username, and he had done a bunch of bushwalks around Christmas time. Keeping in mind, he went missing in October last year and had not been seen since. He was wearing the Whoop on the day that he went missing, and he has not been found. So that could suggest that he's either A, still alive, or B, someone might have found him and obviously will know where he is because they have his Whoop. Now, the reason I'm telling this story is because it is so important to, when you get a photograph, your average person, when you get a photograph like of the picture of the boy that who went missing that day, they just look at it and go, oh yeah, he has brown hair, brown eyes, he looks tall or looks short or is about this weight, is this ethnicity. But that's not all that you should be looking at when it comes to an image. The proper way to really look at and analyze an image is to split it up into a grid, use a grid overlay and go through each little grid and write down what you see in that grid and if there's any distinguishing features. So Michelle, don't get mad at me, but I used our picture from last week. I just Google like grid overlay for photos, and this is the one that generally comes up. So I use these guys. It's really quick and easy. So I uploaded the picture of Michelle and I from last week, and as you can see, it's split our picture up into grids. So there is all different information. When you go grid by grid, there is so much identifying information in this photo that you could be looking at. That's like from the trees, the waterways, the slope of a roof, a watch that Michelle's wearing, whether we're wearing wedding rings, jewelry. You can see name tags there. So we might have been at a conference. The lighting, like where the waterway is and the direction that the sun is setting. There is so much information in here that to the average kind of untrained eye, or the person that doesn't split up a photo, but can you tell us? I can't. I cannot. So you're looking at all of that information and you are going to use that in your investigation. So like, yeah, as I said, you can look at the different trees that are in the background. You can run them through Google or put it on your iPhone and say, what tree is this? And it will tell you what tree it is, the waterway, where the sun's setting, the lights on the tree, the slope of the roof. There is so much information there that, yes, if you don't split it up, people just look at the picture as a whole and go, oh yeah, that person's missing, and don't look at identifying information. It is really important. And when you are doing these types of things, if you are doing missing persons cases, if a person, like if I was holding my phone in the photograph, generally by iPhone, like camera placements and how many cameras there are, you can tell what make and model it is. Being able to put the make and model of a phone in a report is important information. If I'm wearing a Fitbit, if I'm wearing a wedding ring, if I'm wearing a lanyard, it's all of those pieces of information go into the report because they're all pieces of information that can open doors to other things. They're pivot points. So being able to split it up into a grid and assess each grid one by one is important. So the other thing is just when you're looking, like you can just use like Canva for a grid overlay. You can print it out and use a ruler if you're that kind of person. But if you are just Googling like grid overlays, just make sure in their privacy policy that they do not store the images that you upload. That's important. So this one doesn't, which is good because you don't want case information going into some kind of database. So yes, when you get an image, cut it up into little pieces and dissect that image properly. That is good investigative work. Yeah, that's my Erison tip of the week.
Thank you, Casey and Michelle Smith, for drinking during Spy Curious. Please report to me after class for disciplinary actions. Good on you, Michelle. You're a good sport. Okay, just coming back to the question about interviewing minors. CTP liability, we'll concentrate on that at the moment, which is in the field of general insurance. So in your Australian Security Academy resources, you'll see this stuff. This is classic Pat Flynn, tells you all about the General Insurance Code of Practice. Now, this is the overarching General Insurance Code of Practice, but when you work for M&A investigations or ProCare or LKA, it doesn't matter who they are, any of them, they'll have their own policies and procedures matched to their specific clients. Allianz, Suncorp, they'll want it done their way. They'll want statements on this template. They'll want these questions asked. QBE will do it their way and they'll want these questions asked on these templates. They're all very similar, but they will be specific policies for those clients. The overarching one is the General Insurance Code of Practice. And you can see that, what it's about, what it's for, the aim of it, why it exists. It gives you the background and the objectives, and that it actually, applies to CTP liability and motor vehicle accident, that sort of thing. It won't apply to workers' compensation. Marine insurance is the transport of goods, won't apply to that. So it just gives you an idea of, how it all works. And all the rules and that all the insurance companies have to abide by that do general insurance investigations. So there are guides everywhere, processes, policies and procedures. You don't have to remember 100 of these, right? Because you'll only be working for one or two companies as a subcontract, maybe 3 maximum. But like I said, they will be giving you that guidance and how it all works and how it is to be done. And it's not hard. It's not hard to be done. The big issue that's really important with CTP liability, particularly today, and the stress claims that are coming out, psychological injury of witnesses, is you, as the person who takes the statement or conducts the record of interview, you are an independent assessor documenting the circumstances of the claim. If they ask you, do you think I'll get a payout for this? Your answer is, I don't know. You don't make any decisions. You don't influence any decisions. You're leaving them a business card. There's your business card with your phone number on it. If their claim doesn't get up, right, and they don't get the $500,000 worth of payout that they were banking on, it's not your fault. You just asked the questions, you probed, you clarified, you checked You asked more deeper questions. Now, if they didn't cooperate, or they avoided, or the witnesses said this didn't even happen, that's not your fault. You do not have to give them an explanation. They ring you up and ask you, it's your fault that I didn't get my $500,000. That's not the case. You don't carry that. You don't wear that. You are just the independent investigator looking at the facts of the matter, asking the questions and putting in a report on what everybody said. The attending police, the attending ambulance said this. The witnesses who arrived at the scene said this and that. This conflicted with what was said by this person. You're allowed to point that out. But you do not make any decisions, and you cannot answer any questions about how the claim will fall this way or that way on behalf of the claimant or the insurance company. You just say, I don't know, if you get that kind of question. It's like protecting yourself from emotional blackmail. People say, it's all your fault, you did it, you stitched me up, whatever. You didn't. That's not the case. And this is why you always, when you do these investigations and you take statements from people, you're always friendly. You are always empathetic, right? Some of the questions are going to make people very uncomfortable. You ask them about previous injuries and previous knocks on the head and stuff like that, okay? And they're going to think, oh, yeah, well, I've had a few of those at footy and I've hit my head in this accident. You're asking the questions because you've been told to, and they're on your sheet. If they say to you, why are you asking me that? Show them your question sheet. Turn your laptop around and say, I ask everybody that. That's my job. But keep in mind, when they answer the question, it's your responsibility to say, well, tell me about, explain to me, describe to me from that answer. You've got 3 more questions that need to clarify the detail. That way they can't avoid it. That way you're doing your job properly, because if you don't ask those questions and it does get challenged at AFCA, which is go to Investigations Uni and find out all about what AFCA is in these types of claims. If it does get challenged and you didn't ask the questions, you rush through them to get to your next job because you had 130 questions and only time to ask 60, right? And given that it's 130 questions, you should have asked 390 questions in all, right, to get the information that was required. That could be considered your fault. So don't rush, be empathetic, get people to relax and get comfortable with you and tell you things. And follow Casey and Pat Flynn's advice on every occasion is before you start asking the questions, build a rapport with the people. That is, people, episode 316 of Spy Curious. I hope you enjoyed being here with Chief Operations Officer of the Australian Security Academy this week and myself, and that you got something out of episode 316. If you did, give us a like, please. If you would like to make a contribution to this program, be on it with a presentation, get in touch with me. We want to include you in the program. Don't be afraid to say, look, Mike, I have a subject similar to what Casey does on OSINT, and it's all about this. Would you like me to make a presentation on it? And we actually pay you to do it. You don't tell the Chief Operations Officer. Okay, all right. So people, thanks for watching. See you next week. Coffee time. Enjoy that coffee, Chris. Okay. We in discussions with the Chief Operations Officer about the format of what we do, and we're open-minded to moving ahead with new ideas and the future, and also for things like actual conferences and stuff like that that you can actually come to. That's a whole different concept. So great question, Courtney, and I think if you watch, you'll see more. No worries, Ned. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for watching. And people, see you next week, and have a great weekend and enjoy being an investigator. It's great fun. We love it. And we go out every week in the same way. No, we don't.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
Mission complete for episode 360. Thanks, 16. Thanks for watching, people. Casey's got basketball to coach. I've got certificates to go and post out to successful graduates. I've been in Melbourne all this week conducting interviews for people studying Certificate 4 in Security Management to meet the County Court Amendment Act regulations down in Victoria. I've met some people from 2004 when I first met them 21 years ago in relation to their first ever qualification. A great bunch of people. We've had a laugh this week. We've had a really enjoyable time. Multiple Australian security graduate students met with me at the Western Hotel in the CBD, and we'll be back with more about that next time. See you next week. Thanks for watching, people.